Taking a look at what comes in the CVO conversion kit. I'm going to go ahead and slide the cover off, and you'll see we have a fully assembled frame as well as the fully assembled valve sitting in the frame and our spares kit. The spares kit contains all the seals that are used in this new frame as well as an additional lighter tension spring should you want to reduce your trigger pull weight. For right now, we're going to go ahead and set these aside because they're not used in the installation process. We recommend going ahead and putting them in your spare parts tin that came with your marker. Whether you have an RSX or an XLS, you should have a spare parts tin, and putting these parts in it mean you're not going to lose them, and you'll have them should you ever need to service your frame. Now, taking the frame out, you'll find the valve is sitting in the top of the frame, fully assembled, and the frame itself is again fully assembled. The only tools we'll need to complete the process are 3 Allen keys. First of all, the 1/16 Allen key, and that's going to be for your front manifold screw as well as your eye covers. We're going to need a 1/8 Allen key, which is going to be used for removing the frame screws as well as the rear manifold. And finally, a 5/64 Allen key for the grip frame screws. So let's go ahead and start tearing down the XLS so we can install the CVO frame. To start, we're going to remove the aasa'knob so that we can reuse it on the CVO frame. The CVO frame will work with either the XLS knob or the RSX knob. They both function just fine. So we're going to unscrew that like we were degassing our tank, and it will come completely out. There are no O-rings on this, so there's nothing to worry about losing. You can just simply set it to the side until we start the installation process. The next thing we'll need to do is remove the front grip cover so that we can get the frame off easily. That just slides down, and again, we're going to set that right off to the side. Then we're going to open up our grip to remove our electronics, and to start, we're going to use a 5/64 Allen key to go ahead and remove those 3 screws. With the 3 grip screws removed, we can now access the grip itself. Now this is the same side that you open in order to change the battery. So we're going to take and go ahead and first remove our battery by disconnecting the harness and setting it aside. And then you'll also notice up here at the top, we have our eye harness and our solenoid harness plugged into the main board. So we're going to take those out next. I'm going to use a pick for this. Going ahead and reach down in, getting as close as I can to the connector and pulling straight up on the eye connector and straightening it out into the frame. And then we're going to do the same on the solenoid wire. Again, I like to use a pick to get the wires out and then grabbing down as close as I can to the plug, pulling and disconnecting that wire. And again, we want to straighten them out because straightening them out is going to make it easier when we go to take the frame off. So we're going to go ahead and tuck those wires back in, flip our grip cover back, and then we're going to move on to removing our 2 grip frame mounting screws located just behind the regulator and just behind the grip frame itself. For that, we're going to use our 1/8 Allen key. Simply come down from the top and break that loose. Set it aside. We will be reusing these. It's 2 screws, so I'm going to put them over here in our reuse pile. Okay. With those 2 screws removed, we're going to be able to simply slide the frame off from the body and set the electronic frame aside. Now we can look at removing the solenoid and its manifold in order to progress with the installation. In order to remove all the electronic components in one piece, we're going to remove the rear manifold, the front manifold, as well as the eye system. To do that, we're going to start by removing the eye from its in-body mount by using our 1/16 Allen key to loosen the eye cover. I find the easiest way to grip the cover is to simply slide your finger in through the front of the marker, press out, and the ball detent cover will lift up. Now you can see the eye between its two mounting posts and with wires leading down into the eye tunnel. So we're going to go ahead and release the eye board from its mounts just simply by lifting up nice and easy to remove it from its mounts. And we're going to repeat the process exactly the same on the other side. Flipping it over, we're going to go ahead and once again remove the eye cover with our 1/16 Allen key. And set it off to the side. Mounting is the same on the other side, as you can see, with the two posts holding the eye board into place. We're going to reach in there and simply remove it from those mounts. With both of those eyes removed from their mounts, they can now be drawn back down through the tunnel, which is how they go from the bottom side of the marker to the side of the marker. A pick works best for this, simply pulling gently on the wires until you can reach the actual components themselves. And I like to do one set at a time. So as you can see, the yellow and white correspond to one eye sensor and the red and black correspond to the other. You don't want to force this process. Be very gentle because you can pull the wire from the board. You'll want to make sure that you're working it down through the tunnel and that if there is any hang-ups, you stop and start again to make sure it comes free and clear. So here you can see we have both of the eyes removed from their mounts and withdrawn from the tunnels. Our next step is to remove the manifold and the solenoid itself. In order to remove the solenoid and its manifold, we're going to start by pushing the eye wires off to one side so we can get a clear look at the forward mounting screw located just ahead of the bolt speed adjustment. This is a 1/16 Allen screw. And we're going to go ahead and simply remove it, carefully setting it aside because we will be reusing this screw during reinstallation. Next, the rear mount is a 1/8 Allen key. This is the same Allen key we used earlier to remove the grip frame mounting bolts. We're going to simply slide our Allen key in there and unscrew that rear tower screw. With that tower screw loose, you'll see the entire assembly comes free. And here we have our bolt speed adjustment, front manifold, solenoid, and rear manifold all coming off in one piece. We are going to reuse this rear tower screw, so we need to go ahead and press it out from the top. It'll come out the bottom, and we can set it aside for our reinstallation. You can take your solenoid and your eye system and go ahead and set it aside for storage. Before moving on with the assembly, we're going to look at the parts that we are going to reuse from our XLS to our CVO conversion. First of all, we're obviously going to reinstall our grip cover. We're also going to reinstall the aasa'knob from our XLS into our CVO frame, the two mounting screws which hold the frame to the body, our eye covers, our forward solenoid screw, and our rear solenoid screw. These are the parts that we'll need to install our CVO frame onto the XLS. In order to begin reassembly, we're going to start by reinstalling our detent covers. First, we want to make sure that the detent is properly located and functioning just by giving it a few presses with our finger to make sure it's good to go, and then dropping it into its location on the body. Simply then secure the eye hardware to lock the cover and detent into place. We do not need to over tighten here. Simply snug is more than good to make sure that eye cover stays. Do the same process on the other side, dropping into place, and again, snugging up the mounting hardware. Again, being careful to simply snug and not over tighten. With both the eye covers in place, we can now move on to installing the heart of the system, which is the CVO valve. As stated in the unboxing portion of this video, your CVO valve will arrive completely assembled. It consists of three major parts. First, your bolt speed adjustment. Second, your magnetic resistance and transfer tube. And then finally, the valve. Before installing the valve to the body, we want to make a couple checks. First of all, we want to turn it up and see that the bolt speed adjustment O-ring is in place. As you can see, it is compressed into an oval when it's properly seated, and that the rear tower seal is in place here at the back of the valve. If you've lost or misplaced either of these seals, there are extras in the spares that comes with the kit. The last thing we want to check before installation is to make sure everything is lined up properly. The bolt speed adjustment should be directly in line with the resistance magnet, which is then directly in line with the valve body itself. With all three components lined up properly, it will drop into the body very easily. You won't have to fight it, and it should fall right into place. To start the mounting, we're going to start with our rear tower screw, and we're only going to use the first couple threads to begin with and then snug it up after we've installed the front screw. This is going to ensure that the valve seats evenly to the body and we don't accidentally produce a cross thread when forcing the screw into the body. After mounting the rear tower screw, we're then going to put in the front solenoid manifold securement screw. Again, this is a 1/16. Now we can go ahead and fully snug this down. Again, we're not over tightening, we're simply snugging it down and then moving back to our rear tower screw and finish threading that in. With both of those mounting screws nice and solid, you'll want to make sure that the retention pin for the bolt speed adjustment is pressed through to one side. You'll know this because it actually has a dog leg or an L on the right-hand side, which should be pressed up flush against the the bolt speed adjustment during the install. Next, we'll go ahead and slide the frame on and install the final pieces for assembly. Before putting the body on the frame, we want to perform some final checks. First, we want to assure that the bolt speed adjustment pin is pressed completely across and that the L portion is tight to the bolt speed adjustment body. We then want to inspect the body port O-ring to assure that it is clean and free of debris or damage. This is the tube that transfers air from the frame to the body, so it's very important that this is clean and intact before proceeding. Once we've checked those off, we can go ahead and slide the body onto the frame, and it will slide right on. You should be able to hold the frame in place with your fingers and have no wobble or gap between the body and frame. If you encounter any wobble or gap, you're going to want to remove the frame, determine the source of the interference before proceeding with securement. To secure the frame of the body, we're going to put our front screw in first. This is a 1/8 Allen key. We want to make sure that we only just start the threads. Again, no resistance should be encountered. If you encounter any resistance, you want to back it out and start over to prevent producing a cross thread. We're going to then insert our rear frame screw and snug it up. It's important not to over tighten the rear frame screw, because if you do, it can interfere with the function of the bolt latch and not allow it to fully engage. We're going to finish by snugging up the front frame screw, and now we have our frame mounted and ready to go. Our final steps will be to install our aasa'knob into the ASA of the CVO frame. You'll notice that there are several holes drilled around the outside central hole. This is for weight reduction in the ASA. Also, you'll notice up at the top, there is a set screw. This is the set screw that's used to release the adjustment and allows the ASA to move back towards the player as much as 1/2 inch. To install the knob, we're simply going to put it in the center hole and apply moderate pressure so that the nose of the knob goes through the ASA seal. With it through the seal, we can then go ahead and snug it down so we don't lose it in transit. Finally, the last step is to slide our grip cover back on, and we've completed the process of converting a Shocker XLS to a Shocker CVO. With our CVO fully assembled, we're going to want to put into storage our electronic components. We're going to grab the box that our kit came in and our removed components, our frame complete with board and our solenoid complete with wiring harness. Going to drop that into the frame just as it would sit normally in the marker, drop it back in the frame, and as you can see, the case is perfectly cut out for the assembly. You'll want to make sure your eye wires aren't pinched but are simply tucked off to the side, slide your case cover back on, and your electronic parts are good for when you want to convert back. So once again, this is the install process for the Shocker XLS to the CVO frame. Thank you for watching, and check out our channel for more tech tips and installation.